in Israel, Hanukkah time. So sufganiyot, the donuts are, everywhere. So some content creator decided to take a box of donuts, and instead of filling them with jelly, they filled them with hot sauce. So they looked from the outside with a little red on the top and the red on the side. They look, and they put baking soda instead of powdered sugar on top. They look, you're laughing, right? They looked like your classic Israeli donut. And then they walked around with a box of 6 to unsuspecting people on the streets and said, Chag Sameach! And they just wanted to share holiday cheer. And of course, they're videoing as each one of their totally unsuspecting passersby take a bite into a hot sauce-filled donut with baking soda on top. And then as their faces like, ugh, and they're spitting it out, they're like cracking up in the video. Like, it's so funny, right? So like, that's your classic prank.
This is the Dilemmas on Screen, a Jewish perspective podcast, where we take ambiguous moral situations in fictional popular movies and TV shows and analyze them from a Torah lens. As a quick overview, The Office takes place in Scranton, Pennsylvania, about a company that sells paper. This company has multiple branches, but we're mostly focused on the Scranton branch. There are probably about 12 characters in Scranton, which includes the manager, secretary, salesmen, accountants, etc. Jim and Dwight are on the sales team. Jim is a funny, charming guy, and he's in his late 20s, early 30s. Dwight is a bit of an uptight, by the book, takes things too literally guy, and is a bit of a dork. And he's maybe a few years older than Jim, not by much. Jim plays pranks on Dwight, which is a consistent comedic theme in the show, and may well be one of the funniest parts of the series. Pam is the secretary and is Jim's love interest. She often plays along with the pranks. Pam also likes Jim, and they eventually get married as a side point. Now, just to give a sampling of the types of pranks that Jim pulls on Dwight. 1. Gift wrapping. Jim gift wraps Dwight's furniture, his desk, his chair, etc. Dwight then sits down to unwrap everything, and turns out it was only paper, and Dwight just falls straight to the floor. Jim transfers to a different office location. Before he does, he steals some of Dwight's stationery to send faxes to Dwight from future Dwight. Jim writes in the fax, Dwight, someone poisons the coffee today at 8 a.m. Do not drink the coffee. We then flash to Dwight, who looks up. He sees a coworker with coffee, and Dwight runs across the office and slaps the coffee right out of the coworker's hand onto the floor. The coworker is displeased, to say the least. Jim also likes to perform pranks for an audience. His usual audience, i.e. his coworker, is out, so he now performs for another coworker who apparently really likes meatball jokes. Turns out, though, that Jim is the one who's being pranked. Dwight and this new audience guy meet up later to split the meatballs, and they say to the camera, he's been feeding us for a week. Now, we kind of start seeing the dynamic shift because Dwight pays the new secretary to announce that she won an art contest, which takes a real dig at Pam, who's been trying to increase her skill at art for a long time, and she's not very good at it. It was Dwight's way of getting revenge on Pam. And then the final prank, the wedding prank, which is Dwight is getting married, and Dwight had already asked Jim to be his best man. And Jim accepted because it's kind of beautiful. One of the really nice arcs of the show is the fact that you see Jim and Dwight actually really become friends, and there's this kind of buddy-buddy, this collegial relationship between them, or even more than collegial. They're like really good friends, as you can tell. And even earlier, in the earlier seasons, you see that Jim and Dwight go on a sales call together, and truth is they actually work really well together. So you see this kind of like flourishing relationship. And as Jim's last prank, they're in the privacy of their room. It's just Jim and Dwight, and Jim goes to Dwight and he's like, I'm sorry, I can't be your best man. And he backs out. Dwight's crestfallen. And then we see Michael Scott, i.e. Steve Carell, the former boss who Dwight loves, turns up as the best man. And of course, Dwight is delighted. With that, we have a few questions we'd like answered. What's the Torah's general view of pranks? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it both? Why? How do we parse that out? And also, eventually, Dwight starts fighting back and pranking Jim and Pam. Can a person start pranking back? Or should he take the high road? And then another question. When does a prank go from being a friendly joke to just being mean? What's the difference between pranking and playing a computer game for team building purposes? As background, in one of the more successful offices of the company, the office staff would play Call of Duty, a first-person shooter game on company time. This was done purposely by the office manager, who also participated. Now, as you can imagine, this kind of could also build a bit of a joking atmosphere. People are kind of making fun of the players who aren't so good. So how is that different from a prank? It seems like it is. But why? And then lastly, when is a prank just a cute way of leading into a delightful surprise? As we saw with a wedding prank, in terms of it wasn't nice for Dwight to experience that, but it led to a huge high. So how do we approach that? I am excited to welcome Rabbi Freundlich to this episode to answer our questions. Rabbi Freundlich serves as the senior rabbi of Congregation Beth Shalom in Lawrence, New York. Rabbi Freundlich received his smicha in 2005 from Baltimore's Near Israel Rabbinical College, where he also earned a Master's of Talmudic Law. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the University of Maryland and a Master of Science degree in Professional Counseling from Georgia State University. With his warm smile and engaging personality, Rabbi Freundlich has established himself as a master builder of relationships, accessible and available both for personal or halachic counseling. Utilizing his counseling background, he has also been involved in sensitive community issues. Another passion of his is teaching. Beyond the traditional high school classroom, where Rabbi Freundlich has taught for many years, Rabbi Freundlich utilizes various models to connect with a wide range of people of varied backgrounds, ages, and education, such as formal sermons or a lecture series, a marriage and parenting workshop, or even through online videos and podcasts. Together with his wife Rivki, the Freundlichs are parents to 7 children. Rabbi Freundlich can be contacted by emailing rabbifreundlich@beithshalomlawrence.org, and you can hear more on the shul's podcast, the Congregation Beith Shalom Podcast. I will, of course, share all the links below. And finally, if you like this episode and the podcast generally, we would love your support. Please like our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is that you listen. Leave comments, leave suggestions. We do listen to them. We've done multiple episodes based on what other people are interested in hearing. So get in touch. Love to hear from you and enjoy this episode. So, Rabbi Freundlich, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
I am very excited to be here. And for all your listeners, I do have to say right up front, you have been a awe-inspiring measure of perseverance, constantly just contacting me over and over again to make this happen. Hope it will be worthwhile for all of your listeners, but I'm very excited to be participating in this.
Yeah, thank you. And we're happy that you joined, and I definitely appreciate your patience as I've continued to prompt you. So thanks for joining, and I'm sure this will be great. All right, so The Office, definitely probably one of the most popular. I'm not sure it's called a sitcom, like a mockumentary style show. It's hilarious. I remember when I started watching it like quite some time ago, and kind of one of the most charming, fun elements of the show is Jim pranking Dwight. I mean, that's for sure one of the reasons why it got so super popular. The dynamic is hilarious. But it obviously poses an issue because we're all having a good time. We're having a good time at Dwight's expense. So before we get into kind of the nitty gritty, the specific details of what it is that Jim does, I do want to address, like, it's fun. Like, it's fun for some people in the office. Like, Jim and Pam have a good time with it. It's part of how they build their relationship. So it's fun for them. But like, how do we view pranking generally? We see the positive, but there's also a negative side. So Judaism generally, how do we view pranking?
Sure. I mean, you hit it exactly at the nail on the head. We love watching it because it's so funny. There is something about the human experience that enjoys. We get a kick out of watching someone else slip on a banana peel. There's like this classic stereotype of like people laughing when they see it. There is nothing intrinsically funny about that, but somehow it makes us laugh. And a show like The Office picked up on how much each of us as the viewers would love to do that, would love to be involved. It's great stuff. And I'll be totally honest, I laugh out loud like everybody else. It's great. But as you're saying, but like when you peel back the layers, like, yeah, it's nice on Hollywood. It's nice that it's a television sitcom to watch it. But is it really okay to do is a totally different story in the sense of breaking down like what actually happened. What did the victim, so to speak, of the prank have to experience to go through with this? And how do we feel about that? I think intuitively, and as we'll continue in this discussion, I'm sure, I think intuitively most of us understand like it's not a nice thing at all to do. It's not something that we would train or teach our children to do. That's not something that we look forward to or admire as a trait. It's hilarious on television, great entertainment. But as far as the growth of a human being, not quite what we're looking for.
Right. It's a good point. I guess like if we got called in, I mean, obviously this is in a workplace, so they're adults, but if we got called in because our kid was the one doing that to another kid, we'd probably be really disappointed. And if our kid was the victim here, he was the one being pranked, I can't imagine any of us would be like, oh, that's such good fun. Just laugh along with them. Like, no, dude, they're laughing at you. I guess actually we can get back to that later, the whole laughing at someone versus with someone. But yeah, I can't imagine we'd be delighted if someone was doing that to us, to our kid. It would just probably wouldn't rub us the right way.
100%. Now that's almost the way you look at it. It's like, what if I was Dwight? What if it was my child, my spouse, who was that character who came home from work and every day had to tell me, this is what happened to me. There's no chance anyone would be like, oh, don't worry about it, honey. It's all in good fun. We would be irate. there'd be steam coming out of our ears. So that's always a way to look at it. Like, well, how do we look at it as a religious community? How does the Torah look at it? All right, well, put yourself in Dwight's shoes. How would you feel if it was you, your child, your spouse? It's pretty obvious what the answer to that is in almost all of those cases.
That's actually kind of interesting, because I guess what perhaps our listeners may have expected was like, oh, here's the Jewish law about this. But here you're saying, like, before we even get to Jewish law, and we could speak about if there are laws about this, but this isn't even like a legal thing. This is just almost like a good character trait thing. There's this whole idea of derech eretz kamel Torah, and proper behavior comes before you receive the Torah. So you're saying even on that level, before you even get to the Torah, it's intuitive, and you shouldn't be doing this.
It is certainly intuitive, but that is actually, if you wanted to highlight, the Talmud actually has an amazing statement from the great sage Hillel. If you wanted to encompass all of Torah in one line, he writes, that which you don't like, don't do to your friends. If you wouldn't want it done to you, don't do it to anybody else. And so from that level alone, again, when I say most of the pranks, and I think this is really, I'm sure there's something we're going to get into, which is what are really the terms of engagements of a prank? Sometimes there are two guys, which a little bit applies to as the show developed to Jim and to Dwight, where no, this is their dynamic. This is their relationship. They expect it. They're playing with each other. That's totally different than the kind of prank where certainly as the show begins, where it's unexpected, there are no terms of engagement. It's a one-sided, so that nobody wants to be the butt of that kind of joke. Nobody wants to be the object where everybody's laughing. But there are other kinds of pranks where it's more an agreed upon type of behavior. And those are different. Those you have to sort of distinguish between. I'll give you an example. There was a bunch of these videos have come out over the years. In Israel, Hanukkah time, so sufganiyot, the donuts are, everywhere. So some content creator decided to take a box of donuts, and instead of filling them with jelly, they filled them with hot sauce. So they looked from the outside with a little red on the top and the red on the side. They look, and they put baking soda instead of powdered sugar on top. They look, you're laughing, right? They looked like your classic Israeli donut. And then they walked around with a box of 6 to unsuspecting people on the streets and said, Chag Sameach! And they just wanted to share holiday cheer. And of course, they're videoing as each one of their totally unsuspecting passersby take a bite into a hot sauce-filled donut with baking soda on top. And then as their faces like, ugh, and they're spitting it out, they're like cracking up in the video. Like, it's so funny, right? So like, that's your classic prank. Like, what's funny about, it's funny as the viewer. If you're the person who bit into that donut, what's funny about that? There is no terms of engagement. It's not like we're two people who are having fun and you're going to get me today, I get you tomorrow, and this is how we banter around the office and have a good time. That's the kind of prank that just to get clicks and views is totally at someone else's expense. And that's totally antithetical to like the Jewish v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your friend like yourself. What kind of friendship? You're just using somebody as an object to laugh at them. And in that kind of example, it's like crystal clear, like you're my object, I'm laughing at you, and I love that you've made yourself look like a fool and taste something horrible. I fooled you. It's like all bad from like, I think everybody would agree, like that's not even like a Torah perspective. It's good for clicks, but it's not good for society.
Right, that's right. I guess I can't help but think, but if someone were to say like, one of these people who've been into the donut got really upset, then I'm sure some people would probably be sympathetic, like that was not cool the way we're saying. But you could also be like, oh, the guy is, he's being such a bad sport. Like, be a good sport. You often hear that, and you're kind of like, that's how I would be impressed with a person who was able to take the prank in good stride. So I'm kind of curious, like post facto. It's true there was no terms of engagement, but afterwards, the fact that someone's forgiving, partly they're doing this because they don't look like a fool. I'm sure they're aware of the fact that there's a camera on top of them. Like you've seen those classic prank shows, you'll see people get upset, and then you'll see like at the end, the prankster is like hugging the person and pointing out to the camera, like, hey, look, the camera, and they're like, oh, haha, and like, 2 thumbs up. So does that change anything post facto, or like, is that just kind of, we know what that is?
I have there's a book that I got many, many years ago. It's called The Speed of Trust. And it basically just details how society functions on trust. It really does in everything that we do, from the simplest examples of trusting that the person who delivers my mail is really a mailman. And when I go to a store, this is really the price and you're not scamming me. And that we function as society trusting all the time. When you walk up to somebody and give them a donut, or those television shows that are all about pranks, and then afterwards they show them, you were on camera. All that it does is erodes the idea, the most basic premise of society functioning, which is, I can trust you. Now, again, there's a certain level, like you don't want to be scammed. You got to learn not to trust everybody. But it breaks down where now I walk around, and when anybody asks me for directions, like, am I on camera? Are you just fooling with me? Are you going to make a fool out of me? What is it? The trick works. The prank works because you're prying on a person's trust that they assumed when you asked them whatever question you asked them, that you were being serious, that you were an honest person with integrity. And you weren't, only to make fun of them. So it erodes just really the basic rules of societal functioning. Now, making a big thing of it, it's just funny, it's no big deal. But that person who was pranked for years after now has to always like, is this real? Is this not real? Are you being serious? I don't want to be taken again. It's so, listen, I don't want to be a killjoy of all of these things, but I am certainly not, a fan of using someone as an object for you to get laughs. It's just, it goes against what it is that as a people we're trying to grow and becoming giving and kind people. And I'm just using you as an object to make fun of you. So I'm not a big fan of it. Certainly from that perspective.
That's actually, I'll admit, I didn't think of it from that angle, but that is a very good point, I guess, because you're right. I mean, now once a person, you can almost see this sometimes in social media where you see something like, the person with the camera is trying to engage and people who just don't want to. I'm sure part of it is because they have a camera, but also because they're suspicious. They're like, are you doing this out of like, is this sincere or are you just messing around?
Right. I'll give you another example, something that my kids, they did standard stuff. Like every kid did this, they replaced the pepper for the salt, or the salt for the pepper at some point. And so one of the kids, likes salt for whatever, the scrambled eggs or something. And so they handed him what used to be the salt, and now it was pepper. Or the lid wasn't tight, and so like the whole thing comes out on his food. So they're also so funny because we like, why? He just thought it was going to be normal. Right? And they had messed with him. So now for the next 10 years, every time he's about to do something, he has to check it, or, so what did we gain by that? Right? We made fun of him once, and now like every time, is it really? Because I don't want to have this happen again. Those kinds of pranks are not, Torah values. They're not human values of prying on a person's trust and innocence to make fun of them. That's not like humor. That's creative humor. Humor and joking and causing laughter is great. I will bring this up right now. There's a very famous passage in the Talmud in which a certain sage was at the marketplace, and he runs into Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, which the Gemara, the Talmud often will describe that as an insight into the value of life and different types of conversations that they have. And he asks Elijah the prophet, he asks Eliyahu Navi, is there anyone here who is destined for the world to come? And he points to two people, and the sage is a little bit surprised. They don't quite look like the most pious individuals or the most learned individuals. And he approaches them and he says, what do you guys do? Who are you? Now, he doesn't tell them that he knows something about them, that they are the prototype for those who are destined for the world to come. But he asks them, what do you do? And they say, well, we're jesters. We see if there are people who are down here in the marketplace. They look depressed or sad, or things are weighing on them. And we lift them up. We help them laugh. We help them bring some joy back into their life. And we try to make peace. If we see people are quarreling, we try to make peace. That's what we do. And, and the Talmud's giving us an insight that sometimes we think that, those who are destined for the world to come fit one prototype. They're a certain type of learned person or pious person. But there are other aspects of entry into the eternal world, and putting a smile on someone's face is high, high up on that list, bringing joy to those who are down, bringing comfort to those who need it. Now, that's not easy to do, to be a source of joy, to be a source of laughter. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of creativity. Putting someone else down to be able to make someone else laugh is not that. That's not earning a share in the world to come, because you're taking it away from that. Like, you make this person feel like garbage in order for that person to laugh. That's gets the same net result, but that's a different kind of laughter, a different kind of joke when it's at the expense of somebody rather than just your hard work in figuring out how to be funny and how to be engaging and filled with humor.
I've heard that Gemara before, and truth is, only as you're speaking about, especially in contrast to like the kind of the pranking, is what's amazing about the Gemara. It says we take people who are sad and we make them happy. Now that's amazing, because what a prank is, you're taking someone who perhaps is neutral and you're making them sad to make other people. I never even thought of that, and I almost wonder now if the whole point is you can't make someone else sad to make other people happy. It doesn't work that way. You take sad people and make them happy. You don't other people and make them sad.
For sure. There's another aspect in these pranks, and that's the concept of embarrassment. When we're using someone else to laugh at them, and it's funny and it's hilarious, and we filled their donut with hot sauce or any other tricks that Jim plays on Dwight, usually the object is embarrassed because everyone's laughing at them. The whole, whatever it is, the whole office, the classroom, whoever it is. And it's well known that the Talmud describes a person who embarrasses somebody else in public is as if they murdered them. It's a strong, strong language that it's like akin to murder. The person's still here, but they feel so ashamed that it's like the opposite of what we were just speaking about in terms of putting a smile on them and giving them life. You've drained the life from them. So, when you're planning a prank like that, and maybe when it's over, you'll show them the camera. It's like, you were on camera, or like, haha, that's so funny. We were just joking. We don't really mean it. At the end of the day, if the person was embarrassed, if the nature of the prank is in front of others and others are laughing, the object of that prank being embarrassed, like, there's not much to talk about, like, from a Torah perspective. Like, well, how do we feel about that? That's terrible. That is terrible.
Right. So I guess, but I kind of double clicking on that idea in terms of it's like murder. Like you said, that's very extreme. If we're going to take this to its logical conclusion, then one thing I thought of was, if you're going to say it's murder, then we also know there's a general principle of like self-defense. If someone comes to kill you, you can then kill them. So I guess in terms of, we could potentially, I don't imagine you're allowed to kill a person who's about to embarrass you, but like, so like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean you can prank them back? Someone's going to prank you, you can prank them back? Or like, first, why is it like murder? That sounds very extreme.
It is. I think the sages wanted to make it sound extreme. They wanted wanted us to understand that when you embarrass somebody in public, it's akin to murder. Again, as you said, it's not really murder. We wouldn't prosecute or try anybody for murder. But it's akin to murder. Like, you've taken their life away. In the same way as you can build a person life, you can give them a sense of a self-worth and accomplishment and value. You can take it away from a person. And when you take that away from a person, even though they're physically still here in front of us, but it's like, that's exactly the way the sages, it's akin to murder. Like, you've taken away their life. They feel like they have nothing of who they are. Now, in response to your questions, like, so can you do it back to them? So the answer, of course, is no. Like, they did it to you. It's done. They got to deal with the consequences. That doesn't give you the right, to do it back. An interesting question would have been like, if you found out about it, but the only way to stop it from happening was to somehow flip the prank on them so that they would be humiliated. That would be an interesting debate, whether or not, you could do that. If that was the only way to save it from yourself, was to put it back on them. All right, interesting. But yeah, certainly once it's been done, that doesn't give you permission to do it back. But that does segue into the other part of this discussion, which is, what if there are two guys, two good friends, two office workers, co-workers, and they sort of create this term of engagement of, this is what we do around here for fun. And it is, you do it to me, I'm going to do it to you. Not in the sense like you were just asking about, like in a sense of revenge, but in a sense of like, this is the game that we play. And instead of playing like, video games during our lunch hour, we're going to prank each other. And, in that, if that's what we sort of agree, and we sort of agree to the limit of like how bad it could be, and they're both in on it, that's a totally different, then that fits into like, okay, we're having a good time. We're having a good time. The level of embarrassment's never going to be terrible because we're like in it together. We know that this is what, like, oh, you got me. Now I got to get you. There's always a danger of you crossing that threshold. That's the reality. Like two guys, two buddies who are doing that. You want to make sure that it does, and before you know it, somebody does something that's like either actually dangerous or causes loss of, money or time in a way that's different than everything else. But okay, as long as it stays within the rules, that's sort of different. And the show, like getting back to The Office, like sort of went in that there. In the beginning, it was one-sided. Jim was just totally taking it out on Dwight, who was the perfect target. He's the dorky, tight, character who thinks that he's everyone, like that he's awesome. And he's like, and that's just what makes it so perfect. And the show, as it developed, and it got more and more sophisticated as they developed the characters, flipped that script. And that was like part of the greatness of the show was like, wait a minute, nobody saw that coming. Dwight's not the kind of character who can do that to Jim, but he did. And then it's like, so again, as a viewer, it was great. It was great entertainment. And they almost it's almost as if they had a pact, sort of this like agreement that this is how things are going to go. But, again, that's just entertainment.
So I will say, I think that's kind of interesting because in terms of the end result, it became kind of this kind of fun and mutual pranking, like we're going to prank each other. But I can't help but to think, don't we need to be a little wary of like, yeah, okay, what do we condone? Like, hey, like this is a kind of relationship that we have now or something that I want to develop. Can you do that? Is this just something like, no, I know that it'll eventually hopefully get there, but just because the beginnings will be rocky, you just have to say no. Can you say the same thing for pranking?
It's like hard to imagine, again, the language, we have like these two, there's a third thing which you haven't really addressed, which is stealing. Stealing is never okay, even if you intend on returning it. Like the fact that you took something without permission from someone else is stealing, but I'm going to give it back. Okay, but right now you stole. So you have that with time, you have that with resources, you have that with actual money. And then you have this idea of embarrassment. So an embarrassment is like playing with fire. Again, it's akin to murder. So to say like, we'll mess around a little bit. We'll get it right eventually. But, they're like, those are some serious ramifications along the way that you're playing with until you get it right. Like, what if, Dwight never turned around and started pranking Jim back? So like all the way, but along the way, it's okay because eventually we got there. I humiliated you over and over again. You thought the desk was gift wrapped and it was really nothing. You fell right through, and everybody laughs. Like at the end of the day, again, it's like playing with fire. It's playing with fire. It's eroding trust, like those kinds of pranks. Laughter, good times, having fun. There's a place for it. There's no question there's a place for it. I'll even just, when we talk about terms of engagement,
I just as anecdotally, I'll try to keep this vague. Someone I know had a business, and the guy was pretty young. He was like in his 20s when he had started this business, and he hired a new employee who happened to be a woman, and she was very good at her job, and she was such a good employee. It was a tech company. She was an excellent programmer, whatever she did, but also just as a sense of responsibility, she would also clean up the office. She'd clean up the dishes. She'd clean things. And this person I know was just telling his friends, yeah, she's such an awesome employee. Not only does she do the work, she also cleans up. And his friends, I don't know if they're jealous or just not being the most positive people in the world. And she was there, right? Because they're around the same age. So his friends were like, oh, it's amazing that you have this cleaning lady. And she was so embarrassed by that like she was just trying to do a little more that she quit. It's like the embarrassment was so profound that like she was now being treated as if she was like the help, was so profound and she quit. And my acquaintance was really upset about it. He's like, you just cost me this amazing employee.
Exactly what you're saying. Like she literally felt like, I can't be here. I cannot be here anymore. I'm so ashamed or degraded or devalued. Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting, but I think you were going to say like the terms of engagement.
Yeah, so there's a concept and the halacha talks about this on Purim or at a wedding, where there is what we would call today horsing around, guys are being wild, and if somebody in the midst of Purim festivities rips someone else's clothing by accident, but in the midst of their shenanigans and fun and games, he rips their clothing. So is he responsible to pay? So generally, of course, you damage the other person's clothing. Of course, you're responsible to pay. And it's clear in halacha that in the context of a Purim celebration or a wedding celebration, if by accident, as guys were having a good time, fooling around, and something happened by accident, he's not responsible, because in this context, we are both agreeing in the joy of the wedding or in the joy of Purim, this is what we're going to do. And therefore, there are certain givens that might come out from that. Because in order to have this fun, which is sanctioned and encouraged, okay, sometimes it gets a little bit rough. And there is a classic example of the context created the pact between the parties of, this is what we're going to engage in. We both know it. And accidents happen. And just like every aspect of life, things happen. And we're willing to be, so to speak, forgiving of it. But that's where that line is drawn between Purim and a wedding. And I'm just a Tuesday at the water cooler, and I thought I'm getting a drink of water, and, assaulted, it's been salted, whatever it is. I'm like, I spit it out. Why am I'm not expecting that. That's not in the context of a wedding celebration. It's just like, and then they'll take pictures of me and everyone's laughing. Like, what? I didn't agree to any of this. So like in that case, if I spit something out and it causes damage to someone, it's like, of course you're responsible.
That's actually, I actually love the Purim example. I remember when I was in yeshiva, we were learning this in the context of like, if you damage someone's property, what happens? Like you leave a hole, so there's the terms of engagement. I remember there was a Tosfos. He's one of the side commentaries in the Talmud. And he was talking about at a wedding and how part of the wedding festivities, they'd be like fighting. And I was like, why are
like
they
a jostling?
Why are they fighting? And so the Rabbi Rav Bernstein was like, because they were jousting. And I was like, hey, guys, what's going on? And so I was like, they were jousting? And he's like, yeah, some of the Balei Tosfos were knights. And I got really excited when I heard that. I thought that was really cool. I don't know much more about it, but so just as a fun add-on. And then to add on to the Purim, I like that in terms of that there's terms of engagement, in terms of embarrassment. Because again, also part of Purim is in yeshivas, you have a Purim spiel. You put on a play where you have a bunch of skits, and you kind of like, you could poke fun at certain people and certain things, and that's accepted. At our yeshiva, we said like, these are the people who are off limits. You are not allowed to. And I actually thought that was very respectful. Like, look, it's all fun and games, and there are certainly some of the teachers, like some of the rabbis, you can make fun of, but here are the people who are off limits. He's too important to poke fun of. That's one. And I heard at other yeshivas, there's actually someone here in Chicago told me that at their yeshiva, the boys have to ask their teachers if they're okay, and the teacher has to sign off on it. And if the Rebbe is like I don't accept this, then the boys will respect it. They're like, okay, so we won't. I thought that was amazing. That's kind of exactly what you're saying. Like, it's okay to do that, but there's a framework. It's not just open season. Like, look, it's Purim. We get to do whatever you want. There are rules here.
Exactly. And all of this goes against, again, that idea of like the hot sauce and the donut. It's totally unsuspecting. I'm trusting you that you're just a nice person and you're prying on my innocence to make fun of me, versus it's Purim. This is what we do. It's, you're going to make the Purim spiel this year and I'm going to make it next year, and we have a good time with it. Just that context changes the whole dynamic.
Right. And I think in the office where they kind of, where they did have terms of engagement, because it was interesting. Because on the one hand, you could say like, look, the pranks create like a good kind of office feel. It's a good fun time. But I think in contrast, when Jim in like the third season, I think, goes to a different branch, and the branch manager there has like, they all play this like game, then Call of Duty, and they play in different teams, and like it can get intensive. And there's a definitely like, they joke around with like, who's a good player and who isn't. But that framework that builds the team, and that's like a positive area. But what's funny is when like Rashida Jones's character is kind of like making fun of Jim. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like when he's the butt of the joke.
Exactly. And that team building is another great example where when you do a team building activity, you've created the context. And in this context, there will be whatever exactly the activity is, but there might be like fun or making fun or having a good time, but we are on a team building experience versus where no one is expecting it and you're just taking advantage of someone. All of those things, those makes a huge difference in terms of where there's more wiggle room, so to speak, for using someone as an object to laugh at, where they're like expecting it or okay with it because that's the situation versus like just totally not expecting it. And, whatever the classic one where Jim had everybody call him Dwayne or putting nickels in his phone, right? He's just the object. And it's hilarious. And we all laugh when we watch it because like, that's such good stuff. It's so funny. We all wish we can do that to somebody. It's like,
I feel bad. It's like
right?
I'm laughing.
The creativity of the writers is like astounding. They get all the good stuff that you would love to do. It's so good. But again, just put yourself, if you're Dwight, how do you feel? And like, that's just it's a very basic litmus test. It's great to watch Dwight, but I don't want to be Dwight. Okay. That's all you need to ask yourself.
Right. It's like so funny because I'm just like, you're describing this and here we are, we're talking about this topic and it's like, it's so bad to embarrass someone. They start talking about the Nichols case and it's just like, I can't help it. It's so funny. I mean, like, I guess just, practically speaking, like, how do we approach that in terms of you're laughing? I mean, I remember feeling bad about this in grade 6. Like, I've always had a hard time just restraining my laughter, even when I know that it's at someone's expense. So I know like one of my friends was making fun of another one of my friends who it was like a bit of an interesting dynamic. That friendship broke up soon because I didn't realize that it was turning vicious, but they're making fun of my friend and I knew it was mean, but I couldn't help but laugh. And I remember feeling bad. I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing. I know he's hurt by this and he doesn't like it, but it's funny. I guess, is there like some kind of like a practical suggestion in terms of, am I a bad person now because I'm laughing? Like it's involuntary. I don't want to laugh. I know it's wrong. And yet here I am.
Yeah. It goes back to the banana peel. Why do we laugh? Why do we laugh when we see somebody slip on a banana peel? Like there's nothing funny. Like they're hurt. They fell on the floor. They embarrassed themselves. There's an element of laughter, and this goes into a deep Kabbalistic concept, which I'm not getting into the depths, just skimming the surface on, of when something is incongruous. When something is incongruous, it makes us laugh. You think about good humor. I was expecting the story to go this way, and it was a sudden shift. It went that way. A good plot twist. All of those things are engaging, and they're often funny. Things which seem like they can't be. The very name of our forefather, Yitzchak, it's laughter. It's laugh invoking because it's impossible. This story, he can't be born from a 100-year-old man and a 90-year-old woman. It can't be. And when it happens, everyone who sees is going to laugh. That's literally what Sarah says when she hears this news. We're going to call him Yitzchak because it's so incongruous. It's so unexpected. But just as far as what you're describing, yeah, we laugh because it's so like, I can't believe you're saying that about him. I can't, it's true. It's funny. It is funny. And so we laugh. It is really not a simple task, to see something that would make us laugh. You think of, I, as a rabbi of a shul, I try my best never to allow comedians to come to I don't like it at all. I don't like it. Because what makes comedians so funny is they're making fun of things. They're making fun of people. They're making fun of certain demographics. And they're good because there's what to make fun of. So we laugh. But it's like, like someone's going to be hurt. It's just, if they're like totally clean and not making fun of everybody, it's often a dud. So that's not a good program. And if they're making fun of things, it's funny. Like, it's funny. I laugh too. It's funny. But it doesn't mean it's like a value that I have to laugh at somebody, but like it's true that it's funny. So
no, that's a good point. I remember, like, I used to. I'm not gonna name him, but there was one, I guess, like, kind of show, this almost like journalistic type comedic show, and I used to watch it, and then I heard this whole like long, like hour long share this class about how like humor, it can be great. Like you said, like it could be elevating, it could be great, it could be team building, it could make a person happy, but sometimes it also tears things down. And when it tears things down, it can be like a real negative. Like you could hear this inspiring idea and you're like, wow. And you're like, you feel like your life is about to change. And then one person makes one funny comment and there goes all the inspiration. And as I was thinking about this, I was like, this is what this comedic guy does. He literally just tears things down. So I think that's, I mean, like, kudos to you. Cause you're right. It can be fun and funny, but at what cost? What's the expense? Good point. I actually want to move on. I'd like to go through maybe one or two and see like what issues come up. So when Jim moves offices, he steals some of Dwight's stationery, goes to this other place, and he starts sending faxes to Dwight from like future Dwight.
Future Dwight,
and he's like, "Hey, Dwight, like this is future Dwight speaking. Someone poisons the coffee this morning. Do not drink the coffee." And then like you see it flashes to Dwight, and then he sees Stanley like walking by with his cup of coffee. And Dwight's like, "No!" And he like goes and he slaps it out of his hand. And we're just like, "Oh, this is amazing." But so kind of taking a step back, how do we see that? Let's break it down. What are the issues here?
You know, on a minor, I mean, I would say minor level, but on the one hand, what you have here is again a wasted cup of coffee. So, okay, you know, how big a waste, and we've probably wasted many cups of coffee in our life. Like, but if we're listing everything, so at the end of the day, we wasted a cup of coffee. In that particular scene, which is so funny, is like he literally like throws it out of his hand. Like, well, where did it go? So like when you're watching as a viewer, they just cut to commercial and it's just hilarious. But now there's a mess, right? There's coffee everywhere. So that's got to be dealt with. You know, whether or not he stained the carpet, the walls, whatever it is. And the real issue in that particular, you know, prank is, you know, getting into Dwight's head that he's being communicated from the future Dwight. This is why we as the viewers love that, because like, are you kidding me? Like, what? He really thinks that future Dwight is faxing messages to him. It's like, and like it's so absurd, which is why it's so funny. It's such good entertainment that the character of Dwight would believe that his future self, right? So then you just have to ask in terms of whether you're asking that question of is there something wrong with getting in someone's head and making them believe something as absurd and as that? So to a degree, you have what's called Genevas Das. You're stealing their mind or their mindset or their understanding of the world, and that you've convinced them that something is real that's not. What kind of impact will that have? So in that particular scene, it was a cup of coffee. But the ability to now manipulate a person based on the fact that you have sold them false information about the world is in itself a problem. You have completely manipulated their sense because you've lied to them and created a reality that does not exist. And now they are interacting with that reality. Again, I feel like I'm making a big thing out of a television show, but in terms of if you break down what happened, that's the problem. And that's why it's so funny in that Jim is pulling the strings as the puppeteer because he created a false reality that because of the character of Dwight believes. And we're like, that's ridiculous. No one would believe such a thing. But what happens is that like, I've created a reality that's not true, that you believe in, and I now can manipulate your behaviors based on this false reality that I created. That, you know, we talk about what's the problem? That's the problem. You know, you're no longer functioning in reality. I falsified reality because I pried on your naivety, silly, whatever, you know, but I pried on something, created a new world that's not true and I'm in control of, and now I dictate certain behaviors. So that's not, you know.
You know what though? Okay, so like it's true. Like actually, now that you're saying this in terms of, you're right, because we're making a mountain out of a molehill. Like it's clearly so absurd, no one would believe that. But I know when Punk'd was a big show, and this was like 20 years ago, I'm dating myself, with like Ashton Kutcher going around and pretending things. Like I remember he had like people come to Justin Timberlake's house and pretend to like repo the home or something like that. And so I actually wonder if that is almost like the joy of, in terms of, there's the more slapstick humor, like the donut scene where you pack with hot sauce. That's slapstick in terms of, there's no deception in terms of, yeah, it's true, you trick someone, but the idea is like, you immediately get it. But the deeper pranks are when you do get into somebody's head. And like, just like Justin Timberlake thought his house was being repoed. Like you've manipulated reality to him. And now you're almost like, what's he going to do? I almost wonder if that's part of the problem with pranking. It's not just the embarrassment, it's the deceit.
100%. Like we were talking about earlier, like the world is built on trust. Right. And I trusted you that whatever story you're telling me is true. And the reality is it's not true. And you're purposely making up a reality in order to play a joke on me. And that's exactly it. You know, it is total deceit. And you created a false reality that gets into my head of like, I don't know what's real anymore, only because you're purposely messing with it. Not because there's a complicated situation in the Middle East and I can't figure out who's saying what. Like, no, you're purposely misleading me and making me think that what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right and what's up is down and down. And then you laugh at me because I believed you. Didn't you want me to believe you? Don't you want me to trust what you say? No, you don't. That's why, like, you're when you play the prank, you're actively saying, I really don't want you to believe anything that I say. I don't want you to trust me.
You know what? That's actually, so first, thank you for making those. I wasn't building the connection between like the whole trust and the deceit, but yeah, that's true. And what's also scary is like I have young kids, and I literally remember this when I was a kid, when, you know, people like, you know, they joke around, and then I remember I would joke around, and my mom's like, you're like, don't lie. And I was like, what do you mean? Like it was a joke. And she's like, no, like that's lying. And then I remember when sometimes like I like to, you know, joke around with my kids. So I'll go joke around, and I could see like one of my daughters will get like kind of flustered and she's like, you're lying. And then I was like, oh my gosh, dude, like this is like flashbacks to when I was a kid. Like kids can't tell the difference between a joke and a lie. And I think it does. I really try to mitigate it now because I'm worried that I'm eroding the trust my own kids have in what I'm saying. I want them to believe what I'm saying. And like, in terms of, again, you can make a mountain of a molehill, but I think that's pretty serious. Like I want my kids to trust what I'm saying. And so I literally had to tone down my joking, even though I'm trying to like have fun with them, because they don't get it. And that's not funny. That's not funny at all.
Right. Yeah. Well, even for grownups, it's not a matter of not getting it. It's like, you told me something. I thought you were a trustworthy person. I believed you. And then it turns out you were lying to get a good laugh. So now what? You don't want me to trust anything that you say? You don't want me to believe you? Like what? Well, that's, you know, like that's always the argument, you know, that I would be making in terms of even with my own kids or myself. I agree with you. Like as parents, like you fooled your kid. Why didn't you fool your kid? They of course they believed mommy or daddy. And it turns out whatever you were saying that wasn't true. So you get a good laugh. Like, so you don't want them to believe you? You don't want them to trust you?
Oh, one last question, just so we can end on like on a net positive, was one of the pranks. It's like the most wholesome, like the best. It's like such a fun prank. Is Dwight's about to get married, and so Jim's the best man, which is like it's like really like full circle. It's like beautiful relationship. Like Dwight wants Jim to be the best man. Jim's happy to do that, and Jim at the wedding was like, "Can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it." And Dwight's like, "What?" And he's like, "You see, he's like crestfallen." And then you see like Michael Scott, like the boss, walks in and he's like, yeah, he's going to be the best man. And you see like Dwight's face lit up and it's like beautiful. And then Jim's like, best prank ever. And that's beautiful. So in terms of, again, like there you could see it led to Dwight wasn't in on it. And he was upset at first. Now it happened to be that it was really nice. It was a nice ending. So how do we view that? Because there was deceit. You were lying. It was negative, but it was nice. It was nice. It was cute. So like, what's the difference there? It's hard for me to exactly parse through. Like, why is that not the same as Dwight Jim just pranking Dwight?
Yeah, but it is a good question and is a great case study of which, you know, just to talk it through is not clear because he's not embarrassed. You didn't take like time, you know, in any of those ways. All you did is, let's just call it for what it is. You temporarily crushed him on his wedding day. Like we all know what it's like in that moment. Like in those, the whole thing was 4 seconds, right? From the time that he says, I can't do it until Michael walks in and it's like this climax, like what a great ending. during those 4 seconds, like there's panic. I mean, if you were the groom getting married and you were planning on this happening, and now he says, I can't, and like, well, now what? It was short-lived, but it's panic that you create. So I think this really gets back to a question which we really haven't spoken about much in this session, which is like, what's the objective? Why are you doing this? Why are you pranking the person? So again, the word prank is a fun, like, why are you putting the person through this? So most of the times when it's a prank, the reason why you're deceiving the person is so that you could laugh at them. So that doesn't really hold a lot of water. The reason why I'm deceiving you is so that I could laugh at you. And if I were to ask you, would you have wanted me to do that? And no, I don't want you to do that. I didn't enjoy that at all. You enjoyed it. I don't enjoy it. So if that's how the relationship would go, so then the answer is like, yeah, that's not really okay. What's unique about this example that you're talking about is if you were to have asked, like, why are you doing it? Like, why are you playing this game on Dwight? The answer is to build up his excitement, to build up his joy when he sees Michael. That's why I'm not doing it for me. This is the prank that Jim is not doing for himself to laugh at Dwight. He's doing it so that Dwight gets a bigger high from the result. So that if you were to ask Dwight after the wedding, were you okay, happy? If you could have known in advance, would you have wanted him to go through with it? It's very possible he would say, yes, that was great. He would not say that about the nickels hitting his head. He would not say about his desk being gift wrapped. He would not say that about the bloody glove. He would not say that about the Dwayne. The answer is no, I would not want it. I don't like it. I didn't enjoy it. You got a kick out of it. So that's what changes that prank from all the others, in which it was actually for Dwight's benefit, that prank. Now, we could debate whether or not Dwight would have said, if you could ask him, was it worth the 4 seconds of panic to get to that end result? Okay, that's a risk, right? That the pranker is playing. Like, I hope so. But it's possible the answer is yes. All the other pranks, the answer is for sure no. But in that prank, could be Dwight would have been happy with that. Because certainly, if you ask the question, like, again, why are you doing it? I'm actually doing this for Dwight. That's why I'm doing it. So that puts that in a different category of prank, where it's actually being done for the benefit of the object of the prank. Again, we could debate whether or not he would want it or he wouldn't want it, but at least as I set out on this prank, it's for your benefit. It's because you're going to like this.
That's beautiful. I love that. I also think an additional point is that it was done in private, so it wasn't for like everyone to see. That's beautiful. I like that. I like that. That makes sense. Rabbi, this was phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining us.
That was really a pleasure being on. I thank you very much for the opportunity, and look forward to listening to some other episodes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Dilemmas on Screen, a Jewish Perspective podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. If you have any suggestions for a moral dilemma you'd like analyzed, feel free to send it over. Thanks again, and see you next time.